It's Meta Monday, everybody. Welcome back to Good Game Nation. We bring you all things TCG. My name is Preston, and that is Sam. Say hello.
It is me. I am Sam. Hello. It is Meta Monday. I'm excited.
It's Meta Monday, everybody. And we found four really interesting decks that topped a tournament. And I think you're going to enjoy these guys. It was a summit battle, uh, and the winner was an Ivank deck.
It was an Ivank
Ivankov
deck.
is showing up in set two.
It's surprising, it's exciting, and I want to look at it. That's those are the three things. The account we got this from was an account Shuma0301. I will link it in the description down below. Very exciting, very cool decks, and let's get into it. We translated them over to Dev like normal, so go check out Dev, guys. It's made this really easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, jumping into dev, we see this Avant list. And does it meet what you expected for this deck, or is it kind of weird? What do you think?
No, it's running exactly what I thought it would run. But we knew that there was going to be 10 to 12 cards that were going to be variants. Most of the mechanic was four Avonks, four Luffys, four Mr. 2, Mr. 3, Buggy, and then there was going to be probably Inzama, and then there were going to be like 12 to 15-ish cards that were going to be variants, very different. Elvita, I'm excited to see. I think the 2K combo makes sense. The most interesting is probably has to be this Dofi. I wonder what the turn one, probably Buggy into Dofi look like. That was something that we had acknowledged was a weakness before, which was that turn two play was a little I didn't know, but I like this Dofi play, and I wonder how it. He obviously won, so I imagine it worked really well.
Yeah. And then so throughout this deck, you have an interesting early game, and then you just have huge drops as your end game. But they're also playing the Gum Gum Rain, the zero cost, which is really cool. I think more blue decks will probably splash it if it should be splashable, I believe. So I think more blue decks are going to play this because of its zero cost. It's going to catch people off guard because you're going to leave zero Dawn open and then drop Rain on them. Um, I imagine the Ivank into Luffy combo is a headliner. You're hoping for it. You're trying for it. If you hit something else like Croc, like we've been saying in all of the Ivank coverage,
Yeah,
that's also cool.
it's a nice switch because green slash red have been very aggressive, and blue has had very telegraphed aggression, and I think it's still telegraphed with Ivank, except there's very much less you can do about Ivank dropping Luffy. If you play Ivank on curve and you have a 7 drop and a 6 drop that are both 7k, it's very hard to do anything about that. Like the most reasonable play out of it would be black, would be Kuzan wiping with a king. But that is very late into the, ideally later in the game. So this right here is probably going to be a problem going forward, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and it's any impelled down card with six or less. So even if you hit an on play card that's a lower drop,
Yeah.
it's not harmful. Like if you hit a buggy search, that doesn't hurt. That's a plus that you got to play a card for free. It's not as impactful as a six drop, but men on board and more game knowledge is not a bad thing.
No, I mean that would be the worst case scenario, but it's still not the worst case scenario. And it's just nice seeing this deck do well out the gate. I like the cards they splashed. I wonder how the Dofi worked. I have to imagine in an Avant deck where you want no cards in your hand, this was discarded a lot. So I wonder how often they played it. And I wonder if they preferred a combo focus card. I have questions. I'm excited to see this leader here, though. It did well, and I'm imagining it's going to continue to do well. Maybe not necessarily always with the Avank leader, but I think this Avank into Luffy 7 to 6 drop is, especially with Croc as well, is going to be continue to be an issue
Yeah, I
for the
think
meta.
so.
It's very exciting. Congratulations to this Avank deck. I wanted to start with it. It was so cool. Had to. The next was this really interesting Luffy deck. Luffy took. It doesn't say what everyone else took, right? No,
I don't think so.
very cool, very different take on Red. Preston, as a person that has played a lot of this specific Luffy, this is much different than any list that we have created. Obviously, they have more tools to complete this archetype, but what do you think as a more aggressive central player to this deck?
This is interesting because I think it doesn't really hit the aggressive aspects that we're used to, at least with the heavy rush oriented stuff. And instead, it's going to be hitting a lot more of the control aspect and probably more board wipe, considering Nico and Vista are going to hit a lot of things. It's really interesting to think that Otama's not just there for counter now. Otama is absolutely hitting board and reducing and gaining, or what does Otama do?
Minusing,
Um,
minusing, all these
Minusing.
minuses.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Reducing your opponent's cards and then jet pistoling them or hitting them with a Robin or a Vista. It's really interesting to think that we came into red thinking, oh, we're just going to rush through everybody. We're going to play rush every turn. We're going to attack, and they're not going to be able to like hang with the speed that we're bringing. And the only two rush cards that are playable that will gain rush in this deck is Zoro and the starter deck Luffy. The ace doesn't get his effect without the Whitebeard leader. So it's really interesting to think that the red archetype always had this subgenre that I've been ignoring. So there's other decks that are better at control.
Uh-huh.
Why would I play red if I want to do control? And now we're seeing controlled destruction with uh, a full turn with the Whitebeard stuff. And I absolutely think this is probably the stronger version of the deck. And it probably is playable in this version in set one too, also, because of most of the destruction's already there. We're gaining Vista, Ace, and a 9-drop Whitebeard, which is wild. And that's it. Everything else you should be able to play set one because the film promos, which is just the
Coming soon.
uh, yeah, it will be around for set one for
Check
the entirety of set one.
check out the news video right here.
Yeah,
And
yesterday's video, check it out. So it's really interesting that this deck is almost complete in set one, and you're just dropping more power, more control from the set two variations.
yeah, when I saw Vista, my original thought was, I wonder if Vista is going to replace Nico Robin. That was my first thought because Vista is instant, and that is a favorable trade because you have to attack with Nico Robin, and that can be a downside. But here we're just playing them together. My brain never processed that we were probably just going to play both. Um, because they were going to be not searchable through both methods, but we just don't care. We're just playing them all. This deck is missing. Technically, you could dive more into this archetype. There's a 4-drop Brook from the starter that absolutely could work in this as well. It might be too much. They chose the Law instead because it's instant speed. It happens on play. So we chose that. I think the Whitebeard also, the 9-drop, is probably going to replace Shanks in most iterations of higher level tournaments. Edward just gives you the defensive option of just bumping your leader up 2k more power. Usually, when you play a 9-drop, you're open, you're a little more susceptible to these larger attacks, so you don't have, Dawn for
Defense.
defense, yeah. But now Edward Newgate essentially is the defense. So I really like this. I like this idea. I like this mechanic a lot. I think it's really cool. I'm wondering why Bart. This 2-drop Bart seems a little interesting to me. This is probably the card that stood out because it doesn't necessarily work with the any archetype that we're familiar with in red. It is essentially just a 2-drop blocker. It probably is here just because it's a 2-drop blocker, which is good. That's obviously what he needed for his deck to win. But I wonder why this one. That's probably my thought. But I'm really excited for this style of deck. You said not rush everywhere, but I'm like, there's still the significant rush here. But we just added this destruction. I think that really complements what the game is doing right now. And I'm wondering how this deck does against kids specifically. So I'm interested in more of these red decks. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the Bard is just a 5K blocker.
He's just a
That's
5k blocker, yeah.
Yeah, you commit two Dawn to it.
Yeah,
You should be able to get one for free off of the Luffy effect. And a 5K blocker is nothing to be like sad about,
yep,
especially for a two cost.
true.
It's a little bit to invest on a Dawn times two, But if you're willing to give him the extra Dawn that's not off of the Luffy effect to have a 5K blocker, that's a decent like chunk that people aren't going to be able to get around.
True, true, true. It's exciting. I hope we keep seeing this version of Red. This version of Red definitely has a home in the meta, I think. So pretty cool, pretty cool,
Absolutely.
pretty cool. And we're back to Blue. I love it.
Yeah. And a
And
different version also. I mean, you're getting a lot of set two into this Dofi deck, but seeing the set one Dofi leader is nice. And I didn't think it was gonna drop off, but it's definitely, I think, running with these new cards.
so I when we did the tier list video, which I'll link right here. My argument for Dofi was it's just universally a good leader. Like the effect doesn't have too many downsides other than having to attach being expensive. That's probably its hugest downside. It gained the Moria. The Moria is a huge deal for this deck. Everything that the Dofi was originally dropping off was easy to kill. They were all 5k and lower. It's the first time that Dofi has had access to something a little stronger. So I think this is a huge deal for Dofi, and you'll probably see this at 4. This Avant card is going to be such an interesting card going forward because I think we're going to continue to see it without the leader. Um, it has the ability to just summon this Luffy, which is huge, or Crocodile. They're both. If you
Oh,
saw either,
here.
if you saw either one of them, that would not be ideal. And it's the only targets besides this Bond Clay. Um,
Mhm.
and if you don't draw from it, you just play the Luffy, that's fine. But if you had no cards in your hand and you played this Ivank, you draw 3. That is a huge turn already. And if you drew a Croc or a Luffy off of that, that's a nightmare turn. So I really like this card in blue in general now, and it's gonna be a strong force in this meta.
Yeah, I think you were when we always try to discuss this beforehand, and you were saying just having a card that refills your hand, the draw three, even if you miss and you don't get to play, drawing three is huge. Every other card that draws two, like let's say Mihawk draws two, discards two. That's breaking even. Queen draws and discards. A lot of your draw power that's just like pick up cards has some type of cost of either minusing Dawn or dropping cards out of your hand afterwards. This is just draw three. So if you're just playing it after going hard on your turn, and you have no cards in hand, you draw back up to three. That's a pretty disappointing thing to see from an opponent's point of view. Like, all right, they're out of cards in hand. They have one card in hand. That you play Ivanka, and now you have three, and this card on board. That's pretty gross. I would be upset.
Uh,
I'm already upset. I
there's not a lot of downside to this card. It might be an oversight. It might not be. I don't know if they intended it to be this playable outside of Dofi. Maybe it should have said only with the Avant leader. Maybe. But blue definitely is gonna be more impactful, and this is just the beginning too, because we could see this with blue purple as well. So this is just the start, I think, of this Avant storm. It's definitely going to be interesting going forward. I like this iteration of Dofi. I like seeing Dofi and Draco Mihawk also integrate in this deck. It's very, very top heavy, and the fact that I'm not worried about it speaks volume to how good at Dofi is at controlling what you draw next. So it's just a nice combination of uh, features here. Very, very, very cool deck. Something me personally, would absolutely play. So
yeah.
I'm excited to get into that one.
Yeah, I'm still upset that this deck's annoying.
I am mad.
I
And
got mad thinking about it.
I am mad.
Uh,
And we have Kid. You know, it's really hard to get away from Kid. We have Kid all throughout our spreadsheet. We could absolutely do another 17 just Kid videos. But this Kid specifically, I thought was really cool. Kid set 2 is going to be interesting. So I think this is probably a really cool start to what Kid is going to look like in set 2.
yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of new variation. A lot of the set two stuff is playable with this leader.
Yeah.
And this person decided to spice up and change it up a bit. I don't think we've seen very many Wano variations of the kid leader, and this brings a strong Wano side, like very strong Wano side. Like you get the splashes, but I don't remember seeing very many Momonosuke's in kid decks. So this is very exciting to see a deck that Zach would say has legs. He loves that phrase. And bringing in the new Yamato into this deck is going to make everything just that much more annoying.
Yeah, we talk about what we're gonna like our original thoughts before we record. This is the only set two card. The variation for this deck is the Wano stuff. You know, the Wano stuff offers usually very fast aggression because everything is a 3-drop. But all of the Wano cards that we're playing are the ones that rest. Cat Viper, Izo, Yamato. You have a 2, a 3, and a 4-drop that all do a very similar feat. And then Raizo gives you the card draw. This is probably one of the huge downsides to this deck. It doesn't have any draw. It was just Bonnie. But now we have Momo and Raizo is not that hard to do. You want to keep characters on board with Killer anyway. So with Raizo, this isn't a hard feat. And if we're drawing one card, if we're drawing 2 cards against Kid,
Right.
this is not a fun archetype of this deck. I think this is probably going to be another variation that's going to be very powerful going forward because I think the board control and the board presence of the other decks is going to get worse and more powerful. So having the ability to tap them out and having your leader just run them over is. And this Yamato should not be 6K with an effect. I don't know who did this. Who did this? Put their at in my comments right now. I need to know.
It's
Um,
hockey.
this
She's
Yamato
4K.
is this Yamato's a problem, man.
This is how they're bringing hockey into the game. They're giving strong characters with good effects. If
Smoker, why
if
would
this
you do this?
Yeah, so I
Uh,
think that's kind of how they're showing a little bit of giving a powerful character a good effect, and she's glowing with that like electrical hockey look that I think is pretty well done in the anime. So
oh, she looks great.
it's
There's no arguing that. I just oh man, this card. I knew it was gonna be good, but didn't think it would take Kid up to this next level. We
yeah
were hoping that Kid would maybe at least start to slow down a little bit, but man, I don't think so. I this
yeah
this
and
mm,
And if you're watching this looking at your English cards in front of you as set one comes out, this is mostly buildable. Like you said, the only card that's set two is the Yamato. So if you just find a different four off, you maybe add a couple Rizos and you add another like 6K card or a vanilla that fits in this archetype well, you could absolutely play this in set one with the small minus of the Yamato. So maybe get used to playing this deck now so that when the Yamato comes, you can just train roll your tournaments.
yeah, that wouldn't shock me actually. I think I like every other card as well. I don't think there's anything that really stands out. Basil Hawkins officially had that ruling, so I
Mhm.
wonder if that card might trend off a little bit. But these are all green cards that if you have been playing or had been watching the channel, you are familiar with. So another deck that I'm assuming is gonna catch steam. This Yamato shouldn't have been made. It's too good. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that Hawkins only drops off if blue picks up though. I
true,
think that's the thing.
true,
If blue is going to be very aggressive or like
true.
in the meta, then the Basil will drop. Because if its only downside is one thrust pad cannon, like one literally just the card thrust pad cannon,
True.
resting or pulling out the card so that it doesn't restand,
True.
this card's still going to be disgusting.
True.
So
And I don't think Thrust Pad's ever gonna really gain any steam. It was really just that one little limited battle meta that this was an issue. So yeah,
mhm,
Hawkins is gonna be another little force. This card deck doesn't have a lot of combo power. That could be maybe this could be a weakness in the deck. Hopefully,
yeah.
I'm trying to find weakness in Kid here, guys. I'll be honest.
Yeah. And if you're playing blue, discard your Hawkins for your kit effect. Who cares?
True. You don't need it.
Yeah, free discard.
Free discard, and that would do it for another Meta Monday. Guys,
Woo!
thank you for hanging out this long. In the comments, let us know which deck was your favorite. There was a lot of really cool different decks in there. Really cool, exciting young meta. I'm excited to act. Weirdly enough, I'm excited to see what green is going to respond with. This blue wave is definitely going to make green change a little bit, so I'm curious what to see what the response is from them. Pretty cool, pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. If you want to get more One Piece TCG content, subscribe, ring the bell. You're on YouTube, you know what to do. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye bye.